Welcome to Convention of States Today. This is the January Roundtable. I'm your host, John Ackerman. As you saw on the card that was just on the screen, our topic will be Greenland. First, I want to tell you that this is the final roundtable for COS Today. After 5 years of roundtables, it has served its purpose. And from this point forward, we'll be using the standard COS Today format every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Yes, Dale.
John, I just want to say thank you so much for all that you've done on our roundtable. I couldn't believe it's been 5 years.
That's 5 years, yeah.
But I remember us talking about developing a format like this. Matter of fact, I think it was Ken's idea to call it a roundtable. And
yep.
I just knew that you would be the right person to do this. So I don't want to take any more time here away, but I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you've done.
Well, you're certainly welcome. It's been an honor to serve in this capacity, and I look forward to continued showing up on the In Focus segments in the future, starting in February, right?
Good. That's right.
The only thing about the roundtable, I asked Ken way back in the beginning, because can you get rid of these square boxes that we're all in and put us each one in a circle so we look a little bit round? But Ken couldn't do that, so
StreamYard just wouldn't cooperate with us, John.
No, you got to go with the limits of the technology.
That's true.
Well, the very next thing is some breaking news. If you haven't heard already, the state of Kansas has officially become the 20th state to pass the COS resolution. It brings us that much closer to calling an Article 5 convention and putting the brakes on our runaway federal government. And you know what? It's a surreal feeling. We've been stuck at 19 states for way too long. And 20 states is a major milestone. Think about it. Only 14 more states are needed to call the convention. And we expect some to follow in the coming weeks and months. This victory in Kansas comes after months of strategic organizing, coalition building, and tireless advocacy by leaders and volunteers across that state. It began with a pivotal federal district court decision announced in November, and it culminated in a decisive win that demonstrates the growing momentum for our cause nationwide. And we have reason to celebrate. With 20 states on board, we have only 14 more to go. And then we will have our historic Convention of States to propose much needed amendments to the United States Constitution. So celebrate with us. Now, this is episode number 332 of COS Today, and I want to go right to Marengo Mike with an important reminder.
Programs? Please follow us, and be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell so you'll always know when we're live. Now, back to the show.
Boy, that Marengo is getting better and better every month. Okay.
That's
they're paying him less. They're paying him less, John. They're paying him less, so he's got to shorten him up.
Well, now that John's leaving, maybe we can give Marengo Mike a boost, huh?
Yeah, we'll see.
Let him become the host. Okay. Well, the first thing we want to look at is why President Trump wants Greenland. You know, is it just a hunk of ice? That's what the opening card said. I'm going to turn to our friend from Ohio's comms coordinator, Diana Tellis, to walk us down the road of why President Trump wants Greenland. And Diana, it looks like you're still muted, so you may need to hit that button. Can't hear you yet.
I don't know what happened to her sound.
Still on mute.
On mute.
Dale and Ken, do you want to give her a chance to work on that? And let's hear from Gary Harbaugh. He has a recording on the United States history of buying land. You want to run that now? And Diana can maybe work on her microphone. Okay, let's hear from
Hi, it's
Gary
Gary.
Harbaugh.
I'm going to talk about the acquisition of lands by the United States. We have a long history of doing this. I'm going to talk a little bit about that and some of the important ones from the past. Some by purchase, a couple in there by conquest. So let's talk about it. The first big purchase by the United States was the Louisiana Purchase. That happened in 1803 under President Thomas Jefferson. And Jefferson recognized that the United States, or what we called the United States that time, was vulnerable. The eastern part of the United States was vulnerable to an attack coming up through New Orleans. He was interested in acquiring New Orleans. Talked to the France. The French were kind of worried then about possibly being in another war with England, and the idea of having to defend New Orleans and be fighting the English, was not appealing to him. And so rather than just sell New Orleans, he said, hey, why don't you buy the whole thing? France had claimed this, as was kind of the custom back then. They plant the flag in New Orleans and say, we're claiming all of the land drained by the Mississippi River that lies to the west of the Mississippi River. They had never really settled the inland part of it, and nor even really explored it or anything. It was occupied by thousands of Native Americans, but it seemed to be in their best interest, and it certainly was in America's best interest to make that acquisition. That was nearly 3 million square miles. We bought it from France for about $5 per square mile, so a bargain. And a number of the U.S. states now lie within that territory. It was a great acquisition, and it really opened the United States for settlement west of the Mississippi River. Before that, the Mississippi River had kind of been the barrier. Hey, you can't go beyond the Mississippi River because that's French territory, and everything had been settled east of there. We were in the process of settling the territory to the east, but not to the west. So that was 1803. The next major acquisition was the acquisition in 1819 of Florida. And Florida was a Spanish territory. Spain controlled both Florida, Mexico, other territories in the Caribbean, and they were extracting, gold and so forth from Mexico. That was kind of their vital interest. There were some disputes with the United States over exactly where the borders should be of the territory that they controlled, of the territory we took or got in the Louisiana Purchase. Where were the borders of Texas, and some disputes like that. And so Spain agreed to sell us Florida in return for the settlement of those claims by a treaty concerning those other border areas. And then also we paid about $5 million to settle the claims of people in Florida, the Spanish people who had settled their own property and so forth. So we got that about 50,000 square miles from Spain in 1819. Didn't have another major acquisition until 1867. This is in the post-world or post-Civil War era. President then is Andrew Johnson, Secretary of State William Seward. The United States recognized that we had by then settled, the California gold rush. We'd gone all the way to the west, that we were vulnerable from potentially from an attack from the northern part of the Pacific. And it seemed important that we get control of this territory, this so-called Russian Alaska. Russia had settled it starting in the 1840s. And I say they settled it. They put some settlements there. They never really settled inland. They began trading and really enslaved the natives and used that for acquiring sea otter pelts and other furs, taking them back to Russia. And by the 1860s, the fur trade had largely collapsed. This was a very, very far away. Kodiak, where one of the settlements was, where they did fur trading, was almost 1,000 miles from Russia. Sitka, near the current capital of Juneau, Alaska, was almost 2,000 miles from any Russian port, Russian territory. So this is very far away. Russia again was concerned about invasions from England, or threatened by England or continental powers, and the idea of having to defend this very far away territory of Russia didn't make sense to them. It made a lot of sense to us, so we made the purchase. About 570,000 square miles, 1/6 roughly of the size of the Louisiana purchase, but a very large purchase, $7 million, $12.30 a square mile approximately. It was laughed at, Seward's icebox, but shortly after that, gold was discovered. Later, oil. It realized it was a mineral-rich area, and it was a phenomenal purchase for the United States. That was 1867. Interestingly, the very next year, 1868, William Seward again, guess what he's trying to buy? Greenland and the Dutch West Indies. Three islands, St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John Islands in the Caribbean. So we were trying to acquire these and recognize them as part of our national interest as long ago as 1868. We actually entered into a treaty to acquire that, but the United States Senate didn't like President Johnson, whom they impeached, you will recall, and Seward was a supporter of his as Secretary of State, and just out of spite, they refused to ratify the treaty. So about 30 years later, there's a second attempt for us to acquire Greenland and those islands, and Senator Henry Cabot Lodge felt that those were vital to the United States interest. And again, this became very apparent just weeks later when the Spanish-American War broke out. And so suddenly these islands in that part of the world became much more important to us. We're fighting Spain. As part of the outcome of that war, we got Guam and the Philippines in the Pacific. We annexed Hawaii, and also we obtained Puerto Rico and more or less Cuba. It became independent but a U.S. protectorate. So that was the second time. We entered into another treaty in 1902 to acquire those West Indies islands, not Greenland, but the other islands, with the Danish. But this time the Danish parliament refused to ratify the treaty. So, that was another whiff, but I think we had interest even then in acquiring Greenland. So then all of a sudden we come to World War I, and now we have the threat of Germany either conquering the Danes, forcing them, or taking those U.S. Virgin, what are today the U.S. Virgin Islands, taking those islands, or maybe forcing the Danes to sell those islands to Germany. That would have been a clear violation of the Monroe Doctrine that said, hey, no foreign powers in the Western Hemisphere. And so we again entered into negotiations because it suddenly became much more vital. Germany was a threat. And so World War I, in 1917, we entered into a treaty. We got the U.S. Virgin Islands from the Danish. Now, we entered into the treaty that also they didn't want to part with Greenland. Not sure why, but they didn't want to part with it at that time. And so the treaty kind of recognized their ownership of it. It's kind of silly. They put a little settlement on the south end of the largest island in the world and claim, now we own it all. But anyway, that's kind of the 19th century way of the world during the colonial era. So then after World War II, when we are, in this world war and afterwards the aftermath of it, it becomes much more recognized how vital Greenland is to our interest. And so this becomes the next in a potentially long line of acquisitions by the United States. And the thing that these have in common is that the United States has recognized these various territories as vital to our interest. And so like the Pacific Islands, Guam, the Philippines, Hawaii, those are vital to protecting our West. The U.S. Virgin Islands are vital to our protection there. New Orleans, vital to our protection. Greenland, vital to our protection. And also, the other element in each of those cases is these are lands that were far away and remote from their motherlands, the lands that controlled them. And so they were realized they were vulnerable to these lands being conquered away from them rather than having conquered like, hey, let's sell these. So that's been some history of the U.S. acquisition of what were once foreign lands, making them a part of the United States.
Yes, Gary, that was very excellent summation of where we've been and how we got
That's
to this
Gary.
point.
I'm going to talk about.
Oops, he's playing again. That was an excellent summation from Gary, who's our Indiana State Director for COS. And it shows that from right at the very beginning of this nation, we have purchased other lands, and we have attempted to purchase Greenland in the past. So President Trump is not off his rocker when he wants to do this. Other presidents have wanted to do it. And the question is why? And I hope Diana is able to be heard by us all now. So Diana, would you attempt to tell us why the president wants Greenland?
Can you hear me now?
Excellent.
Good.
Thank you.
Wow. So just FYI, that was for whatever reason, my sound was pushed over to my phone and it wasn't coming through the laptop, which that's never happened before. So there it is. We best expect surprises when it comes to technology. So, yeah, I think President Trump is just the one president who's sort of gutsy enough to find a way to establish that stronghold in Greenland. It fits his personality. He's a deal maker, and he recognizes and has made it clear to NATO and to Davos, maybe not yet enough to the American people, actually, but hopefully eventually. But it is essential to national security and global freedom. And frankly, I want it too. After learning more about it and understanding, we need Greenland. That is a vast space up there, and it's strategically necessary. NATO even has agreed to that now, whether by some kind of, coincidence. They needed to be convinced by Donald Trump, maybe, but they're finally agreeing. And it is about security, not sovereignty. We're not going up there to make Greenland like the 51st state. That's the last thing we need is another state. I don't think we're ready for another state that might be another blue state for all we know. But it's not about that. It's about security. Europe has no backbone. They can't. We've always been the ones to secure it in the 1940s when it needed it. United States was there, and a nation that relies on windmills that they're buying from China is not a strong entity. So we're not going to trust them, and that's our national security that is at risk. And globally, it's theirs too. It's Europe's too. But we cannot afford to not take Greenland. It shocks me, actually, having read farther into this, that we haven't made a more heavy-handed move before now, even that Trump didn't do it in 2019. So that space up there is right where China and Russia would be launching right over their missiles, their ballistic, hypersonic, and cruise missiles, right over the top of that to reach the United States. So we need to take that, not entirely over, but it looks like we'll be getting sort of swaths of land in order to install what they're calling the Golden Dome. That is apparently the just the term, like Iron Dome is what is in use in Israel. I kind of like the term Iron Dome better, actually, but they're different. This would be a far more up-to-date Manhattan Project size sort of project, a space age, modern military defense system, and we need it. This isn't, this isn't just about the United States flexing its muscle. This is the real world. It's not football. It is not, something that we can sort of sing kumbaya and hope it all goes away. We have real enemies with real power and real weapons. And so we need to do this. It looks like they're going to grant military rights to the United States. I'm questioning, I'm not quite sure of this. It doesn't look to me like the rare earth minerals would be something that we have our eye on. But I would say that it could be. I'm unclear on that. We would want it, of course, but I'm not sure that it's in our purview to just take it. That does not look like the deal that he is making right now. But at the very least, we can protect those minerals and the rare earth minerals that are that China and Russia might want, and make sure that they don't end up, at the very least, that they don't end up in their hands. So that's what I know. It all looks good to me. I can appreciate Donald Trump for this effort. As we know, the art of the deal, that is exactly what he has done. I think he looks like he uses hyperbolic messaging, right, to sort of extreme and say, I'll use military force, when he probably doesn't mean that. He gets away with that. I don't know how, but he does have a midterm election to concern himself with. But at the end of the day, it'll all be clear, I think. I don't think there's any intention to do that, but he pushes for that sort of the maximum, and then is okay with what he really wants, which is these sort of parts of the land and the ability to go in and create the Golden Dome. So I'm all about this kind of. This is about the only time that I'm okay with a big, powerful federal government. I want it applied in national defense. So I would assume that you all agree.
Well, yeah, I think that's the first reason for the existence of the federal government, to protect the people. Right. Okay, Dale, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on, I've never read the book, The Art of the Deal by Trump.
It's a good read.
I'm certainly beginning to see the pattern. And that is you start out strong, you start out asking for everything, and then you start negotiating down to what you really can accept. I think this is a perfect example of the art of the deal. So,
I think so. Yeah. And that's exactly the reason that I have not been worried about it. I know there's been some criticism about, Trump wanting to buy Greenland or take it by military force. And I read The Art of the Deal several years ago, and I know that, he always asks for, his opening move is like 10 times more than what he really wants. And everybody's shocked by it, shock and awe, and hyperbole. But then he negotiates down, and the other party walks away feeling pretty good. Hey, I got him down. But the other party doesn't realize Trump got them to come up towards what he said he wanted, but what he really wanted was what he got, so. Okay. And this Greenland thing was front and center in the news last week at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. And for the first time in my life, I saw a view of the Earth from above the North Pole. And by golly, Greenland sits right there, right between us and Russia. And it really opened my eyes to the strategic value. So, Diana, thank you for talking to us about security, not only national security, but world security. Because the last thing we need right now is another world war to break out. And this can really prevent that, stopping, major incursions by Russia and China over the North Pole. Well, I think it's Dale's turn to talk. And Dale, what are you going to tell our audience about?
Well, I got another PowerPoint.
Surprise.
So let me see if I can get this up here and get started here. Okay. Can you all see that okay?
Yeah.
All right. Let me see if I can. All right. Why Greenland matters. I don't want to repeat everything that Diana just said. But as we all know, that there's really three primary reasons that we want to get Greenland. And of course, first of all, is because of the geography, the resources, and the governance. And obviously the military strategy, the military national defense, obviously that is a major concern. But most important is Greenland matters because it's not a passive territory. Greenland has its own elected government, its own parliament, and a clearly defined legal framework that gives Greenlanders substantial control over their political future. Greenland today. Greenland is an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark, but that phrase often understates the reality. Since 2009, Greenland has exercised self-rule, meaning it governs nearly all domestic matters independently. Greenland's parliament legislates on education, healthcare, policing, courts, environmental policy, and natural resources. I wasn't aware of this, that the Greenlanders have a lot more control over themselves than I thought from the beginning. But anyway, Denmark's role today is limited primarily to foreign affairs, defense, and currency. Even in those areas, consultation with Greenland is legally required, not optional. The Self-Rule. The Self-Rule Act of 2009 is the cornerstone of Greenland's modern autonomy. It transferred broad governing authority from Denmark to Greenland, recognized Greenlanders as a people under international law, explicitly affirmed Greenland's right to self-determination. This was a legal restructuring of power, not a symbolic gesture. Powers controlled by Greenland. Today, Greenland controls education, healthcare, courts, law enforcement, environmental regulation, and natural resource development. This means decisions about mining and economic development are made in, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right or not, Nuuk. Is that the capital? Not Copenhagen.
Yeah, I've heard nuke, but
Nuuk?
never mind. It's yeah, self-rule. Yeah.
Okay. Powers retained by Greenland. Denmark retains, this is what Denmark retains authority over foreign relations, defense, and monetary policy. However, Denmark cannot sell Greenland, transfer sovereignty, or negotiate Greenland's future without Greenland's consent. That's very important here. The referendum requirement. Any change in Greenland's sovereignty requires a referendum of the Greenlandic people. There is no legal mechanism for Denmark to override this democratic requirement. Can Denmark sell Greenland? The Self-Rule Act recognizes Greenland's right to independence if its people choose that path. Any such move would be initiated, approved, and driven by Greenlanders themselves. The U.S. interest in Greenland reflects strategic realities, but there is no shortcut. Any partnership must occur through Greenland's government and with the consent of its people. So the bottom line here is Greenland is not for sale. Greenland is not powerless. The future of Greenland belongs to Greenlanders. So thought that was very interesting, that the Greenlanders themselves have a lot more control over this whole thing, I guess, than Denmark or any other organizations, from what I can tell.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Yeah.
It is. Yes.
Okay, Dale, thank you.
Ah,
Well, now we're about halfway through the roundtable, so we're going to take a little break and see a video on narrow COS. Narrow COS.
this is a new feature we've introduced here in 2026 called Timeless Truths, and the young lady doing this is referred to as Elizabeth. So here we go.
We all see the same three problems: spending that never stops, federal power that keeps expanding, and politicians who treat office like a lifetime job. The Convention of States resolution matches those problems with three targeted fixes: fiscal restraints, limits on federal power, and term limits. Nothing else. Not a rewrite. Not a free-for-all. No runaway conventions. And here's the safety net. Even if someone proposed something out of scope, it doesn't become part of the Constitution unless 38 states approve it. That's the highest bar we have. So rights like the Second Amendment don't vanish because a few people dislike them. If there is no national consensus, then there is no change. Remember that the restraint is the point.
Boy, that AI-generated Elizabeth is pretty smart, isn't she? Yeah, I like every word she said. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to invite her on to the In Focus segment, but we got to work on that a little bit.
Okay, look forward to that.
If there is no national consensus, there is no change. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a creation, I might mention. That's a creation by one of our contributors, Ken Whaley, out of the state of Idaho.
He told me he's deep into AI. I didn't know he was that deep into it. Wow, that's amazing.
Over the holidays, he told me that he had created this individual. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, he selected her appearance, her hair color, her jewelry, her clothes. He had to select, as well as provide the script for what she said.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite amazing. Quite amazing.
If you didn't tell me that she was AI generated, I would believe she was a real person.
Would you really? Do you think so?
Oh, she looked real to me, just as real as you look.
Yeah,
maybe even more.
Certainly a lot prettier.
And I think you're
no
real
doubt about that.
Well, she has more hair than you do.
And more hair.
Yeah.
Most people do. Most people do.
Okay, well, that was enlightening. We're going to turn to Ken Kashuba now. He's our Indiana State Communications Coordinator. Ken's going to talk to us about something that is pretty important. What would have to happen for the U.S. to acquire Greenland?
Well, what would have to happen would be that Greenland basically would have to give up their sovereignty, and that's not going to happen. I believe at this point that there are shades of an existing agreement. For now, none of those ambitions have been reflected to concrete terms tied to Trump's announced framework. But NATO said only that future negotiations would aim to ensure Russia and China never gain a foothold. I think that's Trump's ultimate goal. The Greenlanders, obviously, with the minerals. I mean, now there's a lot of I guess open-ended areas that we could go into as far as the minerals are concerned. You know, maybe there's a bit of a payoff somewhere, a little bit there for whatever. But I really think at this point it's Trump's ultimate goal basically is to allow us the security end of things with the dome. And as I said, I think at this point his main thing is shutting down Russia and China. And he's done such a great job right now of really making them. I mean, China has slid backwards with Trump in office here. Yeah. And I really think at this point, you know, for him to just completely take over Greenland, not really his interest, as you guys have already talked about, the art of the deal. He went in, you know, giving people the impression that the military was going to arrive there any day now. and take over Greenland, and that soon became something that he rebuffed openly. Said, no, I have no interest in military action. There is already an existing military base in Greenland. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the name. It's too Danish for me. But it is the one military base that's there. According to the New York Times, officials familiar with parallel discussions said that one idea floated informally involved granting the U.S. sovereignty or near sovereign control over small areas of Greenland for military bases, modeled on Britain's sovereign base areas in Cyprus. So if there's any type of sovereignty involved, it would be only for those military bases. And again, his whole objective here basically is to shut down Russia and China from having any foothold at all in the area. And I think that's really where Trump is at with that. As Diana has, really went through a lot of material that I don't want to, get back into covering, but it really does show his main intent basically is to protect the American people and putting America first. And I think he realizes, as most people may eventually come around to know, that it is crucial. I mean, when you look at that, as far as the water passageway there, and what would need to be protected, along with what access it would grant to places like Russia or China. And China has been awful aggressive in the mineral area. So that, I'm sure, is something that Greenland is attractive for China, who wants to control all minerals. Basically, they want to be able to control the world with their mineral acquisition. So again, getting back to the original question, I don't think at all that Trump's interest is sovereign ownership of Greenland. I just think he looks at it as a partnership, and I think ultimately what he wants to do for the Greenlanders, give them more opportunity, just like he wants to afford to the American people. He wants to provide a better life, a better opportunity for those people. And when you sit back and consider that there's 34 troops and 2 dog sleds protecting that island right now, the ice is not very well protected, not at all. And I don't think they've developed any type of whale submarines of late. So I think at this point it is a crucial area that we want to be involved in as a partnership, but we don't want to own it.
Yeah. And the president made that crystal clear to me last week after he met with the head of NATO, when he said, we got everything we wanted. Did you hear him say that? We got everything we wanted. Yeah. So, okay. Well, thanks, Ken. Dale, we're back to you again. Okay.
I heard a report here just recently that the majority of the minerals involved in these iPhones all come from China.
Oh, yeah. And a big reason for that is that U.S. environmental regulations have prohibited mining, because when you dig a big surface mine like that, you make dust, and people don't like dust.
Well, I just heard it said, the new saying now is, you've heard drill baby drill, now it's mine baby mine. Mine baby mine. That's a good one. I guess the mining careers may be on the upswing here.
Oh, I believe so. Yeah, and they're going to be well-paying jobs.
Yeah,
because that's hard work and potentially dangerous, because you're around monstrous equipment, big equipment. Well, Susan Lyon, you've been very patiently waiting for your turn. You're the cleanup hitter. You get to bat last tonight, almost last. Susan is the editor of the Indiana COS newsletter, and she and her husband are strong supporters of COS. But Susan, welcome back to the Roundtable, and talk to us about what you think is going to be a realistic outcome of all this.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Well, as I was doing some research and listening to the news about President Trump and the things he was saying, I get a kick out of him because, just as you all said, he wrote The Art of the Deal, and I knew when he was saying he'd go in and take it, that was his starting point to shock, just like you said, John. And everybody freaks out, but he ends up with exactly what he wants and what's best for us, for the country. But I will say this: if any other country thinks that he doesn't mean what he says, as all options are on the table, then they're making a big mistake too.
Yeah.
Because he will do what's best for us anyway. Looking through the research, there's a lot of kind of things about this acquisition that we weren't really aware of, or I wasn't aware of. First of all, Russia has already demonstrated that it treats energy, logistics, and geography as political weapons. China uses infrastructure control and financing dependency to lock in influence over decades. They have already begun to take over Greenland. So what he's doing now is stopping them because they've already begun to do it. And China already has control over 70% of the rare earth minerals. And those are important to our defense and our energy. Like you said, the phones, everything we do, those minerals are very important to us. If they have that control and we don't have access to those things, that's very important. It's very important that we get independence in that area. So these rare earth minerals in Greenland are very important to us, as well as strategically defensive for us up there, because our defense depends on those minerals as well. So one of the things that I hadn't heard before either was that part of the importance of the area of Greenland is that our we only have one base, as you said, but Russia has actually gone in and opened up some of their former defensive airfields, army bases. We're talking, they already have a presence in the Arctic with 6 army bases, 10 radar stations, 14 airfields, and 16 deep water ports. And we don't have a presence there. They have strategic waterways that they control, that they call Russian. And the only other waterway through right now, Canada says they own. And Russia supports Canada in claiming that. So there's also the future control of some of the waterways up there that's at stake right now too. And when we have more presence there, we have more control over some of those waterways. Just like we just went in and cleaned up the Panama Canal from Chinese influence down there and control.
Yeah.
We need to be up in the Arctic doing the same exact thing. So also, one of the things that I didn't know was that Greenland is 50% bigger than Alaska and 3 times the size of Texas. I guess I didn't look at a map that really showed me that recently. So it would be the largest territorial expansion in our nation's history if we do it. Now, will Greenland give up sovereignty? I don't think they'll need to, because look what we just did in Venezuela. I mean, that's for a different purpose, but we're sharing in the oil reserves down there. We're helping them mine it. They'll be rich. They'll benefit from it. They'll have a better lifestyle from it. They're freed from an oppressive dictatorship, basically. And, we're not going to need to do all of that with Greenland, obviously. They're doing well. But the thing is, I think Donald Trump probably went to Davos and said, let's be real. Who's been backing you up for the last 80 years. Greenland says they're sovereign, but who really defends them? Whose power keeps anybody from going in and actually just taking them over? Is it Denmark? Or is Denmark depending on us to back them up as well in NATO? I mean, it's the whole thing. We've protected Europe for 80 years. He's probably gone in there and said, how much would you owe us if we sent you a bill for defending you for the last 80 years? Now, the whole thing is we want to be friends. Obviously, we want to get along. But the truth is he probably said, do you want to be under the Golden Dome or do you want to be outside of the Golden Dome? And, what it comes down to is, do you want to be friends? Let's make this happen. We're already defending you, So I think that everybody's going to come out of this deal with a really good outcome. And, we'll be more secure, and we need to be, because as Diana said, we have enemies and we need to be serious about them. We can't just ignore it forever.
True.
So anyway, let me see. I've probably forgotten something that I was going to bring up, but the sensors. There are sensors up there that are needed for the Golden Dome to work, for the satellites to actually be able to get accurate readings of anything that's being projected towards us from Russia or China or wherever. We need to have more sensor stations up there. So that's very important as well.
Sure is. Yeah. Well, Susan, that's great. Thank you. You know what just struck me? I'm the host of the Roundtable, and I made this outline a couple weeks ago, and I didn't know that all of the four of you were going to agree with each other or with me. But you know what? We're all pretty smart people, pretty intelligent. We know how to read. And we've all come to the same conclusion. Yeah. And besides all that, I heard on the news this week that Denmark is currently spending about $600 million a year to provide socialist-style healthcare for the citizens of Greenland. And I know I don't want the United States to own that island, because I don't want to provide socialist style healthcare for 56,000 people, and so, and they will never give that up, as long as they have free healthcare and Denmark's paying for it, they won't want to give it up. Well, the big question to me now is, what is the perspective of COS? What does Convention of States think about Greenland? And I think any one of you can answer, but I think Dale has an answer prepared for that. Dale?
Well, I think it's we need a Convention of States. We need to address this. This is part of our resolution to rein in the control of the federal government, self-defense. It's all part of our makeup in Convention of States and what we stand for, our core values. So whatever's necessary, I think, to protect the American people and protect our country. So yeah.
Thank you, Dale. Ken, Diana, Susan, any further thoughts on that?
I'll go. You know what? It's a great time for COS to stand up and say, we're against government overreach when it comes to the states and municipalities, and we believe in federalism, and that the federal government has its lane, and its lane is diplomacy and defense. And we can get behind that and cheer for it and say, take my money. At least use it well. And so, yeah, it's a good time for us to say and remind the people who we're trying to influence regarding having an Article 5 state convention to propose amendments, but to say, yeah, but the federal government's place is over here. And we agree with this, and we applaud Donald Trump and this effort to keep us well protected, because if we don't have that, what in the heck do we have?
Yeah, good point. Okay. Are all minds clear?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
We're going to take another short break here and hear from our friend up in the frozen wastelands of northern Minnesota with Dave's Daily Dose. And he's going to talk about, of all things, Mexico.
Zero Heads treated me to a fun image this morning. Donnie J put it up on Truth Social, and he admitted it was not an accurate picture. Something one of the boys or girls around the Oval Office put together with an AI tool. The people in the picture were the leaders of various and sundry countries in Europe, frowning, grimacing, biting lips, rolling their eyes. And behind the resolute desk was Mr. Trump, and a large poster on an easel of the Western Hemisphere. For those of you who didn't do well in geography class, our neighborhood and the nations of Canada, United States, Greenland, Cuba, and Venezuela are all in the colors of the flag, the United States flag. Nice. This is Dave's Daily Dose on BrokenRoadRadio.com. I'm David Allen Punt. I shared the poster, and a friend responded that the old man of Europe is on shaky legs, and according to the conspiracy theorists he listens to, will either go full-fledged communist or full-bore Islamic, suggesting very strongly that we should gather up as many friendly nations nearby as possible and convert them quickly to our side. The picture suggests a very large area from Greenland to Venezuela where the dome would go, protecting everyone in the U.S. with this great, big, comfortable protective blanket to keep all those evil missiles from ruining our day. And who knows, maybe Colombia and Brazil would like to be under the umbrella someday too. Strangely, in the fake photo, Mexico is shown as a light brown, not the white stars on blue background and red and white stripes like Canada and Cuba. Did they say something they shouldn't have? Are they not with the program? Are the Mexicans on the outs again? Is the timeshare in Mazatlan out of reach? Then again, as long as the Mazatlanians appreciate my uninflated dollars, I should be able to visit and dip my toes in one of the 3 pools in the center of the resort at will. It might be nice if they were under the dome, the Golden Dome. Maybe they'd like to be the 53rd state. 54? I can think of worse fates. I'm David Allen Punt.
He's a good guy, and I really like listening to him. What interesting thoughts. And this brings us to the end of this month's Roundtable. Before we close it out, I want to give you our email address. If you have any questions at all about Convention of States, you can email them to us at that address on your screen, raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. That's raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Our next COS Today will be next Monday, February the 2nd, and we're going to take a deep dive into Minnesota fraud. So I want to say a final goodbye to you as the Roundtable host. I will see you from time to time, once or twice a month, as an In Focus contributor on COS Today. But to close us out, here is our friend Marengo Mike.
Marengo Mike here with a reminder of the importance of this year as we continue to grow the grassroots army of volunteers and the mission of using the Constitution to fix the ills of our government. Use the QR code if you haven't signed the petition and consider using your talents to become an active volunteer. Thank you and God bless.